This program is powered by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, a Feature Group USA production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association. Research shows that fewer than 500 people have traveled to all 193 countries. Now, divide that number by 100, and you'll probably be in the ballpark of how many Americans have been falsely imprisoned in Syria. Add in the rarity of being a Division I hockey player, and you'll understand why today's guest, Sam Goodwin, is truly one of a kind. All this and more on This Week at Work.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. From the latest rulings in the courtroom to the strategies unfolding in the boardroom, and from real conversations taking place on the front lines to spotlighting what similar companies are doing about the challenges they face. This Week at Work brings you the conversations that matter most to HR professionals and business leaders like you. Brought to you by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, live every Thursday morning. This is your opportunity to connect with their experts and ask your burning questions. So what's keeping you up at night? Let's face it together now on This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Good morning, Bert. Glad to have you with me today. We have an exciting guest, Sam Goodwin, with us today. He's a world traveler, former Division I athlete, humanitarian, author of Saving Sam, and has a powerful story after being wrongfully imprisoned in Syria. I don't know about you. I've never met anyone who's been imprisoned in Syria before.
I have actually never met anyone who has been imprisoned in Syria before either, but I'm very much looking forward to hearing Sam's talk today.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. I've done some research. I'm going to be meeting him for the first time myself, other than the couple minutes pre-program, and it's a great story. So I'm asking everyone, settle in and listen. We're going to get to Lawyer on the Clock so we can get straight to Sam and hear his story. Bert, are you ready for Lawyer on the Clock?
You're testing me. Yes, I'm ready, Phil.
All right. You guys like to make fun of my finger pointing, but Nick, pull that lever.
Curious about a case that could wreck your workplace? Lucky for you, we have a lawyer on the clock.
Phil, we talked a little bit last week and in recent weeks about the number of layoffs going on around the country, and it seems that some of the research has shown that there's been about 950,000 jobs cut from January to September of this year. That would mark the highest number since 2020. And that rise is particularly significant in the government sector, which may or may not be a good thing. We're not sure. But a lot of large companies like Amazon, UPS, et cetera, have also announced tens of thousands of cuts. There's a lot of factors that obviously contribute to the cooling labor market and changing consumer demand following the pandemic. And economists really are viewing the situation really as pretty notable. It shows really a sign of the weakening labor market. And so you really kind of take that into account. Of the 950,000 or so jobs, about 300,000 of those cuts have come from the government sector, which means then that the other 650,000 or so coming from the private sector around the country. So the jobs data is really not looking good at all. There's really the labor market has cooled substantially. I saw an article where Red Robin, the restaurant chain, just announced it's going to be closing. I think it was 70 stores, laying off another 3,200 people. So these job cuts really are quite significant. Now, I'm talking about this because today was the day that the Labor Department was supposed to release its job numbers, full jobs report for October. And they said yesterday that they're not going to be releasing the full data, and they're blaming that on the 43-day federal government shutdown. And they're saying that because of the shutdown, they couldn't calculate the unemployment rate and some other key numbers. So My suspicion is that those numbers probably really do not look good. The economy's been jolted several times recently, especially in light of the government shutdown. And I think with this job data coming out, it's supposed to be coming out. I think that the government's trying to slow walk some of this.
Yeah, I think your intuition in this case, Bert, I'm aligned with it. I think you're exactly spot on. I don't think it's going to be a good report at all. Constantly am in touch with our members. We have our great measuring stick here, our background check business. And I think everything is spot on to what you're saying with the slowdown, with small layoffs occurring within our membership base. Spottingly throughout the base, throughout the Midwest and Florida. But there's definitely still a theme for some that have a difficulty in hiring the right talent. And that is what has me most worried is, you can have a layoff and then your system can come back, the jobs can come back. But in this case, those that are hiring, even coupled with the layoffs that are occurring, it's not a good talent match. And that is always the concern when there's a layoff. If you're losing your job, but you don't have the skills for what the market's looking for, that's a troubled sign.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
so I do want to point out that the Department of Labor apparently was able to collect the hiring numbers from employers, and those numbers should be coming out. So while the full labor picture won't be coming out, hiring numbers will be coming out. I also suspect that those are going to be down somewhat significantly also. So the government was quick to point out and say that there's nothing suspicious about their announcement yesterday. In fact, somebody from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a commissioner, she said specifically, "There's no conspiracy here, folks. BLS was entirely shut down." BLS being the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I don't know what you were thinking there, Phil, but BLS said. This was entirely because BLS was shut down entirely for 6 weeks. Payroll data for firms can be retroactively collected for October. The household survey cannot be conducted retrospectively. So again, they're going to be coming out with this data partially today, and I don't think we'll see full data for another month or so.
Yeah, that's a long time to wait for that. That will create too much speculation, and it will be a conspiracy if that's the case. All right, what else do you have, Bert?
All right, real quickly, I just want to talk about, because I know we want to get to Sam, but wanted to talk about the EEOC just because it's starting to become a little bit more fully staffed, not completely fully staffed, but a little bit more fully staffed. And I mentioned on the program a couple weeks ago that a third EEOC commissioner has been appointed. That person was confirmed during the government shutdown, giving the agency 3 commissioners, which means that the agency has a quorum. It also means that Commissioner Andrea Lucas is now the chair of the EEOC. So she is leading, she's the head commissioner there, and that means she's going to be setting the agenda for the EEOC. And she's definitely, she's not made any secret that she's going to be sharply shifting the agency's focus really to give priority to allegations of religious discrimination. She does have a background, a religious background. Her faith is very important to her. She's said things on social media about her faith. And so she's only 39 years old, and so she's going to be at this for a while. And she has opened investigations into law firms' diversity practices and universities' handling of anti-Semitism. And so that's where she's really going to be concentrating a lot of her focus. It's interesting. She's known as being very pro-enforcement. These were comments made by Victoria Lipnick, who previously served as the EEOC's acting chair during the Trump administration. And she pointed out that a lot of people assume that a Republican EEOC is going to be very hands-off of employers and really focus more on the compliance side rather than sort of the gotcha, I'm going to litigate against you side. But I think that that's not going to be Lucas at all. But I think where you have employers running afoul of religious issues, and in particular, where you have employers and maybe universities implementing what she would describe as unlawful diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, I think you're going to see some significant litigation. If employers, universities don't voluntarily get rid of these programs or at least conform them within the meaning of the law. And we've talked about what that means within the meaning of the law many times on this program. That if you go down the DE&I road, you need to do it very, very carefully to make sure that you are not actually creating discrimination versus trying to eliminate discrimination. But I think that you're going to see a lot of enforcement out of the EEOC. And remember, this is the first time during the second Trump administration. He's been in office we're getting close to a year now. And this is the first time that there's been a quorum under his administration. And so I think you're going to see the EEOC really ramping up its activity. And just to go along with that, to close this topic out, yesterday, President Trump nominated a new person to serve as the 4-year term of general counsel of the EEOC. His name is Carter Crow. He is a management side labor and employment lawyer, much like what I do for a large law firm. Spent quite a bit of time, almost his entire career, at a single firm. And he's been nominated to take on the EEOC's general counsel position. And I think the EEOC is ramping up, and I think you're going to really start to see some enforcement activity.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting time in front of us, so stay tuned, and we will keep you abreast of that activity. Anything else, Bert?
No, I think what I'll do next time, Phil, is we'll talk just a little bit more about what this means for traditional EEOC areas of enforcement. Next week, I want to talk in particular about
the week after next. I'm having turkey next week. That's right.
Thank you. We'll talk about what this means for like the EEOC's guidance on harassment that was issued during the Biden administration and what the new EEOC makeup might mean to that.
All right. And that's called a teaser.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Bert. I appreciate that. All right, Nick, you got a special message here, Nick, from Amy Hart before we get over to Sam?
All right, it's time to check in with the eyes and ears of AIM and everyone's favorite AI-driven HR advisor. Amy, take it away.
Thanks, producer Nick. Here's what's happening at AIM this week and why it matters, according to Amy. The latest Future of Jobs report is out, and it's clear HR teams and business leaders need to think ahead. Skills like creativity, analytical thinking, talent management, and working with AI aren't just nice to have anymore. They're essential. AIM has you covered with training to help you build exactly those capabilities. Want to learn how to actually apply AI in HR and business? Join us live online right after this show at 9:30 a.m. Central for Integrating AI Data-Driven Business Cases with ChatGPT. If you want your team thinking critically and solving big-picture challenges, check out our upcoming Critical Thinking Skills course on December 11th. These trainings don't just check a box, they help you future-proof your workforce. You can find these and more on the AIM training calendar, or reach out to our team for help mapping these skills to roles. All right, so that's what's new, what's next, and what matters. All according to Amy.
All right. Thank you for that, Amy Hart and Nick, for putting that together. Today's guest is Sam Goodwin. Sam has visited every country on earth. However, during his travels in 2019, he was wrongfully imprisoned in Syria, accused of being a spy. His journey through captivity and release is a powerful story of resilience, leadership, and purpose. And Sam now speaks globally on navigating uncertainty and has written a memoir titled Saving Sam, which is available on Amazon. Sam, welcome to the program. We're excited to hear you. You have an amazing story. Let's just talk about what is it that made you determine to visit all 193 countries on the globe?
Good morning, Phil. Thanks for having me on. Really happy to be here with AIM and to be on the show. In a nutshell, it was an unrelenting curiosity from a kid. I was interested in understanding the world and people, and I actually won my third grade class's geography bee. I wasn't very good at many other subjects, but somehow, for some reason, I was interested in that, and I won. And it was really just this curiosity that was kind of living inside of me, and that's what led to the journey.
Yeah, that's I was not very good in social studies and geography and those things. I have a huge interest in them today, but I still don't have a desire to go to 193 countries, particularly some very dangerous places. So Syria comes up on the map and you decide, okay, I guess I got to go to Syria. Walk us through what happened there. That's just an amazing story. We're happy that you survived it, but tell us a little more about how that occurred.
So one of the most important things I learned through travel is that places that are negatively perceived or that Western media tells us we're not supposed to like,
Yeah.
these were the same places on my journey where I had many of my best experiences and where my perspectives were most meaningfully impacted. And that's not to say that safety wasn't the top priority, because it always is. But that was something that I learned on my journey. So Syria was country 181 of 193. I traveled there in May of 2019, and just 2 hours after arriving, I was walking through a roundabout on the way to meet up with my guide when all of a sudden a black pickup truck abruptly pulled up next to me. Two armed men jumped out of the back seat and instructed me to get inside. And as we drove away, they accused me of espionage, of being an American spy and collaborating with terrorists. And nothing like this had ever happened to me before. I was scared, confused. I had no information or anyone to help. I was desperately trying to understand what was happening. And they held me for the next 63 days, for 9 weeks in some pretty uncomfortable situations. I can talk about it if you're interested. Also, as you mentioned, the kind of broader story is in my book called Saving Sam. But thank God, thanks to a long list of people who worked tirelessly, I was released on July 26th and was able to come home.
So, Sam, I'm interested. I don't know what our listeners are really interested in, but I mean, so you're standing there, a truck pulls up, guys jump out, they got a bag, they're putting a sack over your head, or you're thinking, I got to run. All these things would have come into my mind. I'm like, I got to run, I got to fight, I got to save myself. I know that situation isn't good. Um, Give me a little bit more detail there. What happened there?
I was never hooded, but I was,
Okay.
as we got in the car, I was blindfolded. I was stunned and in disbelief about what was happening. My life was spiraling out of control in the most terrifying of ways. I felt exactly the way they wanted me to,
Okay.
hopeless and utterly cut off from any control of my life.
Yeah. On the one video I watched, you were talking to your mom while this happened. I can only imagine how horrifying that experience must have been for a mother to be in conversation and experience then just the silence of the phone.
Yeah, if I'm speaking at an event and if it's in St. Louis or close by, sometimes my parents will come and maybe my mom will be there, and it's interesting. And oftentimes in the Q&A, if the audience finds out that my mom's there, they'll start asking her questions because they
Oh,
want to
sure.
know kind of what happened, what was going through her mind. And that's actually in my book. It's really two stories that are being told, both me on the inside and my family on the outside, because they have their own story. It's kind of like this Apollo 13-esque situation
Yeah.
where there's this under-resourced entity that's stuck and a group of people trying to help. And the difference was that in Apollo 13 they could talk to each other, but the same structure kind of applies.
And very interesting. So eventually you get released. While you were a prisoner, what was the conditions? And we know what we see in movies and how people are maybe fed or not fed and starved and barely kept alive, beaten, tortured. These are the things we hear about from our media in the way a prisoner is treated, particularly in a country like Syria. What were the conditions like?
So my time was essentially split. I spent the first month the first 27 days in solitary confinement. And solitary confinement is torture. It's a cruel captivity tactic that's been used for centuries. I was given bread and boiled potatoes and water. The only human interaction I had was for a few seconds in the morning and evening when the guards brought me that food. I was then moved to another facility on the outskirts of the city, and I was put in a cell with about 40 other men, and I was there for another month, and that was certainly an upgrade from solitary confinement, but that had its own challenges around, all of the different personalities and lack of privacy and those types of things. So very different, very different situations, but my time was split like that.
Were there any other Americans with you at that time? Are you solo?
So I never came across any other Americans. There are a couple who are or were being held in Syria, and I never came across them, unfortunately. So it was all with locals.
Sam, what about English speakers?
So one of the significant challenges I had was a language barrier, particularly with the guards. They either didn't or weren't willing to speak English, so that was just another element that I was dealing with. However, some of the other inmates in the second month did speak English, and I became friends with them. One of the things I quickly learned was that virtually none of them were true criminals. They were just victims of a corrupt system and had been caught up in the instability of the conflict. And guys, I've traveled every country in the world, and some of the best hospitality I've experienced anywhere has been across the Middle East, every country. And I'm confident that if I wouldn't have had this situation, I would have had a fantastic experience in Syria, as I did everywhere else in the region. And these men were some of the most hospitable people I ever met. And just a very quick story: there were times in the second month when a guard would come into the cell and just put a bowl of bread and a bowl of rice in the middle of the cell. And I tell this story in my book. And when that would happen, the other inmates would look at me and they would say, "Sam, you eat first. You are our guest."
Oh, really?
And that
Wow.
was
That's
the
your
type
other
of
inmates.
that was the top type of hospitality that I experienced everywhere across the Middle East. And so one of the challenges that I think I have with my story is just the way that I portray the country, because it's actually a country that's not used to war. Pre-Arab Spring, they welcomed 9 million tourists a year to the country. It's one of the most historically, religiously, culturally significant places in the world. It's mentioned more than 300 times in the Bible and so forth. So it's a little bit of a balance there. Unfortunately, it's been 14 years of war and chaos since the Arab Spring, but cautiously optimistic about what's ahead. But the people in Syria are truly incredible people.
Yeah. So Sam, did you have any training, or was there anything? So you're a Division I hockey player. I mean, hockey is a tough sport. I mean, you can't be, what my grandfather would call me, a little sissy boy, and play hockey, and particularly at the Division I level. What did you lean on to get you through those moments, those months?
There were two areas where I found there were a lot of things that I leaned on for strength, but two things really rise to the top. The first is actually what you mentioned. It was the skills and traits that I developed from a career as a competitive athlete, the mental toughness, critical thinking, resilience. How often have we had a boss or a coach tell us, control what you can control? I mean, we hear CEOs say all the time that they like to hire athletes because of this. Athletes have this unusual ability to deal with failure and to work as a team. And so I leaned on those things and found strength in that. The second and most significantly was my faith. I'm Catholic. I'm so grateful to my parents for instilling a strong Catholic faith into my four younger siblings and I would have been in a different situation without that. What I learned is that faith isn't always easy, but it is always available. And that's what I found in solitary confinement, when everything had been taken from me: my material possessions, my communication, my freedom. But no matter what, I knew that my faith was absolute and they could not take that.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. So you published your book, Saving Sam. What do you hope that people kind of take away from that? And where would you where do people go to get the book?
Thanks, Phil. So I don't want to be known for the things that happen to me. I want to be known for the way I've responded to them. And I hope that the readers of this book or people who hear me speak will be empowered to adopt a similar mindset and implement it into their own personal and professional and spiritual lives. And the book's called Saving Sam. It's available on Amazon. It's actually, I just noticed today there's a Black Friday deal going on. So it's available online everywhere books are sold, and you can check it out there if you're interested.
Yeah, fantastic. So, since coming after being released, and now you work with corporations around the globe to help them with their stories, it's not only inspiration, but what's the connection between what you've experienced and what business leaders and people listening to your amazing story of survival, what's the main connection people are putting together there?
What I primarily speak about is uncertainty, and essentially I was pushed to this point of overwhelming uncertainty, truly life or death. But through that, I learned some things that helped me, and some things that I think can help all of us when we're facing our own forms of uncertainty in our personal and professional lives. And there's so much uncertainty in our world today, particularly as you mentioned, with our business leaders, with our government leaders. And so I provide a framework to help us better embrace and manage those times.
Yeah, no, uncertainty is that's why we have leaders, right? It's really because of uncertainty more than anything else, and how we navigate that. Um, when we're faced with uncertainty, sometimes even as leaders, we turn to our faith for guidance and making decisions. We turn to our experience in that. I'm just curious, like in a situation like this, and we hear about the prisoners that recently were released in Gaza and places like that, or from around the world. Do you have any connection or play any role in that as an American prisoner from that region of the world?
So this topic, this space of hostages and wrongful detainees kind of worked its way into my life in a way that I could have never expected. And so I try to do what I can to give back on that front today, and share what I can. I work with a couple organizations, particularly the Foley Foundation based in Washington, D.C., which has kind of become the authority on advocating for these issues. Particularly on Gaza, just a couple weeks ago, I did an interview with USA Today, and I was giving three key pieces of advice for the released hostages as they came home, and I talked about being sure to be intentional with the food that you're eating. Actually, when I came home about 3 days later, I ended up in the emergency room at St. John's at Mercy Hospital in St. Louis, and I came home and went a little bit crazy with the food. It was like cheeseburgers and Chipotle and Ted
Yeah.
Drew's, and my body had actually adapted to this very simple, basic, low calorie diet, and so I ended up in the ER and was able to get it sorted out. But I recommended that. I recommended just being incredibly intentional about the people that you surround yourself with in those early days of being released. And then the last is around the media. The people, the hostages, particularly in a situation like Gaza, where it's a global story, everybody knows about it. They're going to have a lot of media opportunities, and to not let anybody push you around. I waited 18 months before doing a story with the Wall Street Journal and NPR, and so I am connected in that space, and try to do what I can to help others, given what myself and my family learned through this.
Yeah, I got the pleasure to meet Frank DeAngelis, and he was the principal at Columbine when that happened, and he was a speaker for us at our conference. He did a great job, and one of the things that he always felt compelled to do, he did it on his own. He didn't, it was just his way. And anytime he heard of another school shooting, and such tragedy, he always reached out to offer whatever support he could to those school teachers and principals, and share his experience. And he said, every time that happened, he had to relive it. He'd go home and he'd be sad, and he'd fight depression, all these things all over again. And I can only imagine that it's one thing for me to hear that, and you're the first prisoner captive that I've ever met like that. I can only imagine when you're living through that, you can relate in a very different way than the rest of us can. And so that was kind of the crutches of that question. So when I think about that, I didn't know if there was a network or something that helps people get through that. Because in business, we have networks where we can get through, tough times, and we have focus groups that we participate in, and we have CEO groups or other leadership groups that we can lean on each other. I didn't know if there was such a network like that in this case.
Yeah, there is a little bit, there is a network. And if through, as I mentioned, the Foley Foundation, some other groups, it's, kind of this the most elite club that nobody ever wants to be a part of. And frankly, I didn't even know existed. And I think for Frank at Columbine, he'd probably say this is something that, nothing could have prepared him for in his life. And my family says that as well. And all the families say that it's something that it's the most challenging thing they've ever dealt with, and nothing could have prepared them for it. So we really try to support each other as best we can, and share best practices and knowledge, and what we learned through the experience to help others, because it's a niche space, but it's a complicated niche. And as I mentioned, everybody's
Yeah.
experiencing the hardest thing they've ever dealt with.
Yeah. So maybe one last question here, Sam. When you talk about winning and winning through adversity, what does that mean to you?
So, for me, I share when I reflect on my time, particularly in solitary confinement, when I boil it down, I realize that what I share with the audience today is a three-step framework for winning through uncertainty. And the first is leaning into gratitude. The second is controlling what we can control and taking action. And the third is to recognize uncertainty as an opportunity. And what I advocate for is to adopt this framework, these 3 points in that order. It's not enough to do them in isolation. What I suggest and what helped me was to adopt the entire framework, those 3 points in that order. And that can help us win through uncertain times, whether we're in a prison cell or facing challenges in our personal and professional lives.
Yeah. Oh, those are three great principles to apply. And just as you're talking about it, I'm thinking through those as we're going through a little bit of an uncertain time. We heard Bert give, a report on, jobs and different things, and the economy is uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty today. So those are great three principles to do that. Well, Sam, I've really enjoyed having you on the program. I hope that you and I get a chance to visit again, and maybe we get you on stage with our audience here. It would be a great opportunity to make that match, and we'll bring you back home so you can have some dinner with your family right here in St. Louis. But if we do, I want Mom to come on stage with you. I think that would be fantastic to have you and your mom. That would be a powerful message.
Thanks. I would be honored for the opportunity. And as I said, she likes to come and do what she can help to provide her perspective. But thanks so much for having me today and helping to spread the word, and congratulations on all of your success.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I appreciate it. That is Sam Goodwin. Great story. Go get his book, Saving Sam. You can get it from Amazon. And according to Sam, it's on a Black Friday special week. So take advantage of getting that now. Just as a quick reminder, we got the 39th annual payroll tax and fringe benefit update is being scheduled, and you can register for that now. It's in person in Peoria, Illinois on December 10th. It's in person in St. Louis, Missouri on December 12th. And it's also live online for anybody else in the country. We are going to talk about that big, beautiful bill and all the new tax exemptions that exist and how your payroll department needs to prepare to handle those. All sessions are from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Time. Check it out on the website. You'll be able to register right there. Bert, thank you for joining us.
You reminded us next Thursday is Thanksgiving. I think I saw Nick say something that if any overachievers out there want to log on next Thursday, it's going to be a half hour of you sitting at the table just chowing down on turkey.
Yeah, it could just be that. I mean, it usually doesn't take me a half hour. By the time I'm done preparing everything, I'm done, right? I'm full. Everyone else is ready to eat, and I'm done because I've been nibbling all the way. But
no commentary, just Phil eating turkey.
It's better than a half hour of my finger pointing that you all like to make fun of. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for joining. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday break. We'll be back here the week after next. Sam, thank you again for joining us. Nick, take care and go out and let's be good to somebody.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, and make sure it's on your calendar every week. Ask your burning questions anytime and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. Just go to hrask.org and be sure to leave a review wherever you catch our show to help other HR pros find us as well. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.